The sky above Earth suddenly darkened, as though the very stars themselves had been swallowed by shadows. The inhabitants of Earth stared in disbelief as an enormous fleet of alien ships appeared out of nowhere, blotting out the sun. Their sheer size and number were beyond anything humanity had ever seen. It was a sight that filled the hearts of billions with dread. On board the lead ship, the flagship of the Threx Dominion, Queen Tyrellis stood before the vast, glowing windows that looked out onto the Earth below. Her icy eyes scanned the planet she was about to conquer, feeling a familiar cold hunger to destroy. She had led her people in countless wars across the galaxy, each victory carving her name into the histories of the stars. The Threx were known for their cruelty, their unrelenting desire to bring every species they encountered to heel. And now, Earth was next. But as Tyrellis watched the human cities below, something strange flickered inside her. A memory, long buried, began to rise to the surface of her mind. It was a name, just a whisper on the wind, but it stopped her cold. Marcus Rains. The name echoed like a distant drumbeat in her mind. She pushed the thought aside, brushing it off as nothing more than a strange coincidence. But the longer she stared at the planet, the more that name seemed to grow louder in her thoughts. She had heard that name before, back when she was still human. Long ago, she had been known as Lena Hartwell, a scientist working on advanced human technology, a promising mind who believed in peace and progress. But everything had changed the day she was lost to a strange cosmic event, a wormhole that took her far from Earth, leaving her friends and family behind. After her disappearance, she was found by the Threx, who saw her potential and transformed her, both mentally and physically, into the queen they now revered. Yet now, as her alien fleet moved into position for invasion, that name, Marcus Rains, stirred memories she had buried deep within her. Marcus had been her closest friend, perhaps even something more. But he had been lost, just like everyone else from her old life. Or so she thought. Tyrellis clenched her fists, trying to shake off the sudden surge of emotion. She had no time for such thoughts. Earth was a target, and humanity would soon be crushed under the might of her fleet. Her mind was set. The Threx would show no mercy. But as she watched the Earth slowly grow larger in her view, the name kept haunting her. Marcus Rains. Was it possible? Could he still be alive? She refused to believe it. It was just a fluke, a glitch in her mind. She would destroy Earth, and nothing, no memory, no old name, could change that. But somewhere deep inside, Tyrellis felt a twinge of uncertainty. The battle for Earth was about to begin, but the true battle was already happening within her, a battle she wasn't sure she could win. The invasion had begun. Across Earth, the people watched in terror as the skies darkened, the alien ships looming ominously overhead. Tyrellis's fleet was relentless, their weapons prepared to bring devastation. But while the humans scrambled to defend their planet, the Queen herself stood alone in her private chambers, haunted by thoughts that refused to leave her. She stared out at the vast expanse of space, her mind heavy with confusion. The name Marcus Rains echoed through her mind over and over again. Like a ghost she couldn't escape, it made her feel unsettled, vulnerable, something she had not experienced in years. Tyrellis had led the Threx Dominion with an iron fist. She was feared and respected, a symbol of power and strength. Her people had followed her every order without question, for they knew her reputation as a ruthless leader who destroyed anyone who dared to stand in her way. She was their queen, their commander, their force of nature. But Marcus Rains was different. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the memories that were creeping in. It had been so long, so many years since she had been Lena Hartwell. Before the accident, before the wormhole had pulled her into the far reaches of space, she had been human, just like the people she was now preparing to destroy. Lena had been a scientist, a young woman full of hope and ambition. She had worked with Marcus, her best friend, in the same research facility. They had shared dreams of exploring the stars, of making humanity's future bright. She had trusted him more than anyone else, but that had been before everything changed. The wormhole had taken her far away from Earth, leaving Marcus and the rest of humanity behind. She had no idea what had happened to him after that. She assumed he had perished, like so many others who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now, as she prepared to destroy the last human stronghold, she realized the impossible truth. Marcus Raines was alive, and he was leading the resistance against her. A flood of memories came rushing back, memories of laughter, of shared moments in the lab, of a bond that had been unbreakable. They had been so close. Had she really left that life behind? Was she really capable of this? Cyrillus clenched her fists, trying to push away the doubts. She had a mission. The Threx needed Earth, and she would not let anything, especially not a memory, get in her way. The past was gone. Lena Hartwell was gone. She was Viralis now, the queen of the Threx, and she would not let weakness stand in her way. But as she turned to face the battlefield outside, her heart thudded painfully in her chest. The name Marcus Raines wasn't just a memory now. It was a reminder of everything she had lost. And in the back of her mind, a voice whispered, "What if you could change it all?" General Marcus Raines stood in the command center, his eyes glued to the massive screens that displayed the approaching Threx fleet. The room was filled with the hum of equipment, the steady beeping of alarms, and the voices of soldiers reporting in. Outside the walls of the human stronghold, the world trembled. The alien ships were coming, bigger and more powerful than anything they had faced before. Despite the overwhelming odds, Marcus remained calm. His heart was heavy with the weight of the responsibility he carried, but his mind was sharp. He had fought in countless battles before, but this was different. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight to protect everything humanity had built. "General, we've got an incoming transmission from their fleet," a voice called out from behind him. Marcus nodded, stepping toward the communication panel. A cold shiver ran down his spine as the image of the alien fleet filled the screen. It was a terrifying sight. Hundreds of ships, each one large enough to wipe out entire cities in a single blow. But what struck him most was the confidence in their approach. The Threx weren't just here to attack. They were here to conquer. "Prepare to intercept," Marcus said, his voice steady. "All units on alert. We can't let them reach the planet." The room buzzed with activity as soldiers and officers scrambled to implement his orders. Marcus turned back to the screen, his mind racing. Something about this invasion felt personal. The Threx had attacked other planets before, but this time it felt different. It wasn't just a war. It was a calculated strike, as if they knew exactly where to hit. And then, like a flicker of lightning in a dark sky, a thought struck him. The Queen. There was something about the way the Threx operated, the way they coordinated their attacks, that reminded him of the strategies he had once discussed with someone, a person he had never expected to hear from again. Lena Hartwell, his old friend, the brilliant scientist who had disappeared years ago in the same strange event that had altered the course of his life. He had always assumed she was lost forever, pulled into the depths of space, never to return. Yet now, with the arrival of the Threx, a troubling thought gnawed at him. Could she be alive? And if so, could she be leading the invasion? It was impossible, or so he thought. But as the days passed and he studied the Threx's tactics, the more familiar they seemed. The methods, the strategy, he recognized them. She had been a brilliant tactician. If anyone could lead the Threx with such ruthless precision, it would be her. But could it really be her? His heart struggled with the thought. He couldn't be sure, but he had to find out. "Get me the best team. We're going to intercept their signal," Marcus ordered, turning to his lieutenant. "If there's even the smallest chance Lena is behind this, I need to know." As the officers scrambled to execute his command, Marcus found himself torn between the duty to protect his people and the haunting possibility that his best friend, the woman he thought was lost forever, was now the enemy. The battle was coming, and Marcus knew it would be unlike anything they had faced before. But somewhere deep inside, he felt the weight of something even greater than the Threx fleet itself. A personal war. The hum of the engines filled the command room as Marcus Raines paced back and forth. The tension in the air was thick, heavy with anticipation. His officers were preparing for what would be their first real battle against the Threx fleet. The odds were stacked against them, but the humans had one advantage. They fought for survival. "General, the Threx fleet is almost in firing range," an officer called out. "We're ready to launch the counterattack." Marcus nodded, his face set in a mask of determination. "All units, hold your positions. We'll hit them where it hurts." He knew this was a desperate move. Earth's defense was far from powerful enough to withstand the full might of the Threx. But they had to try. They had to make a stand. For humanity. The alarms blared as the fleet's weapons systems powered up. On the outside, Earth's orbital defenses, the last line of protection, lined up against the incoming invaders. The ground shook as missiles launched into space, streaking toward the alien ships, glowing trails in the dark sky. The first wave of Threx vessels fired back with terrifying force, their plasma cannons cutting through space like a storm of fire. But it wasn't enough. The humans' weapons had barely scratched the surface of the Threx ships, their shields absorbing the energy like they were nothing more than paper. The humans' desperation grew with each passing second. "Adjust fire, target their weak spots," Marcus shouted, eyes glued to the battlefield unfolding on the screens. The battle raged in the skies above, a chaotic storm of energy blasts, explosions, and ships diving in and out of the fray. The human forces were outmatched, but their speed and agility allowed them to land a few lucky hits. Still, the Threx ships were relentless, and for every small victory the humans claimed, they suffered far greater losses. Then, amidst the chaos, a familiar voice crackled through the communication system. "This is Kyrellus, Queen of the Threx. Cease your futile resistance, Earthlings. You have no hope of victory." Her voice was cold, commanding, yet there was something about it that sent a chill through Marcus. Kyrellus. He felt his heart skip a beat. Could it really be her? The voice he had once known so well, the voice of his closest friend, now twisted into something unrecognizable. He hadn't been ready for this. He had suspected, but hearing it made the nightmare feel real. "General, we're taking heavy losses," an officer shouted, snapping Marcus out of his trance. "We need to fall back. We can't hold them." Marcus took a deep breath. The Threx were overwhelming them, but he couldn't give up. Not now. Not when there was a chance Lena was still alive. "Hold your ground," he barked, his voice full of authority. "Every ship counts. We're not backing down. Keep fighting." With that, Marcus gave the order for the fleet to make one last push, rallying his soldiers for one final desperate attack. They couldn't afford to lose, not without knowing the truth about Kyrellus. As the battle raged on, the two forces collided once more, this time with everything on the line. Marcus's eyes never left the screen, where Kyrellus's face flickered, cold and unreadable, amidst the chaos. He knew they had to win this fight, not just for Earth, but for the chance to confront his old friend once more. The battle above Earth was far from over. The human fleet had suffered heavy losses, but there was still a flicker of hope. Marcus Raines refused to let his people fall, even as their ships were torn apart by the Threx's overwhelming firepower. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the Threx didn't: determination. As the hours stretched on, Marcus stood at the command center, staring at the endless waves of fire and explosions on the screen. His mind was elsewhere, though. It wasn't the battle that consumed his thoughts. It was the voice of Kyrellus, the voice of Lena. Could it really be her? Marcus clenched his fists, pushing the thought aside. There was no time for distractions. Earth's survival depended on his ability to lead, to keep fighting, to never give up. But the question gnawed at him like a constant whisper in the back of his mind. Then, Just as the humans were about to launch another desperate counterattack, a strange signal came through. It was weak, distorted, almost like static, but it was there. Marcus's heart skipped a beat when he saw the message's origin. It was from the Threx fleet. He felt his pulse quicken. It couldn't be. But his instincts told him otherwise. He turned to his communications officer. "Play the message," Marcus ordered, his voice sharp. The officer hesitated but then complied, his fingers moving swiftly over the controls. A moment later, the static cleared, and a familiar, haunting voice echoed through the room. "Still here. Not by choice. Starchaser." It was short, it was cryptic, but it was enough. Starchaser. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The call sign. The one they had used together back when they were working on research, back when Lena had still been human. It was impossible, and yet it was unmistakable. Lena was alive. The message sent a wave of conflicting emotions through Marcus. Hope, confusion, fear. If Lena was alive, why was she with the Threx? And why hadn't she reached out to him sooner? The room was silent as the officers exchanged uneasy glances. They could sense the change in Marcus. He was no longer just a general. He was a man confronting something personal, something that threatened everything he knew. "General," one of his officers said softly, breaking the silence. "What should we do?" Marcus took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. His mind raced as he considered his options. The Threx were still coming. They were still fighting for Earth's destruction. But now, everything had changed. The battle was no longer just about survival. It was about Lena. "We need to find out who's behind this," Marcus said, his voice firm but tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "We'll track that signal. There has to be a way to reach her. Even if she's leading the Threx now, there's still a part of her in there." "I know it." His officers nodded, understanding the gravity of what he was asking. This mission was no longer about tactics and military strategy. It was personal. And Marcus couldn't turn away. Not when there was a chance to bring Lena back. The humans set to work, their efforts now focused on deciphering the signal and tracking its source. The battle for Earth would continue, but Marcus had a new goal: to find Lena. To find out what had happened to her, and whether there was still a way to save her from the Threx. The days that followed were tense. The battle for Earth continued with all its fury, but Marcus Raines could no longer focus solely on the war. His mind kept returning to the cryptic message from Starchaser, the message that proved Lena was alive. It was a thin thread of hope, and yet it pulled at him with a force he couldn't ignore. The humans had been struggling to hold off the Threx, but now, with the revelation that Lena might be involved, Marcus felt a new kind of urgency. If she was leading the Threx, it meant everything had changed. She had once been his closest friend, someone he trusted with his life. Now, she was the enemy. Or was she? He paced back and forth in the command center, trying to make sense of it all. Why hadn't she reached out sooner? Why had she been silent all these years? Did she even remember the human she once was? Was she still the woman he had known, or had the Threx erased everything she had been? "General," an officer interrupted his thoughts. "We've tracked the signal to the Threx flagship. It's coming from the central command room." Marcus's heart skipped. The flagship, the heart of the Threx fleet. It was the last place he expected to find Lena, and yet it was the only place he could imagine her being. "We're going in," Marcus said, his voice sharp and decisive. He looked at his officers, who were all ready to follow him. "Get the team together. We'll board the flagship and find out who's really behind this. We need answers." As the officers moved quickly to prepare the operation, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was different now. This mission wasn't just about strategy or tactics. It was about bringing back a piece of his past. It was about finding Lena. The human fleet launched a final desperate assault against the Threx forces, creating a diversion. Marcus led a small team of soldiers through the chaos, their target clear: the Threx flagship. The air crackled with tension as they slipped through the lines, avoiding detection. For all the battles he had fought, this one felt different. He wasn't just a general. He was a man searching for the truth. They boarded the Threx flagship in silence, the corridors cold and unfamiliar. The alien technology was overwhelming, a stark contrast to the human ships they had left behind. But Marcus barely noticed the differences. His mind was fixed on one thing, Lena. They moved quickly through the corridors, guided only by the signal they had tracked. The deeper they went into the heart of the ship, the more Marcus felt the weight of his own doubt. What if she didn't remember him? What if she had become something else, something unrecognizable? Finally, they'd reached the central command room. The door slid open, revealing the control center, a vast room filled with alien technology. And there, standing before a holographic map of the battlefield, was Tyrellus, the alien queen. She turned slowly, her cold, alien eyes locking with Marcus. For a long moment, there was silence between them. Marcus's heart raced. He couldn't breathe. The woman he had once known was standing before him, but she was no longer the Lena he remembered. Lena, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Thyrelus's gaze softened for just a second, as though a flicker of recognition had crossed her face. But it was gone in an instant. Her expression hardened. "You should not have come," she said, her voice low and cold. "You don't understand. None of you do." Marcus's heart sank. This was it. Lena was lost. The room was silent, save for the hum of alien machinery around them. Marcus stood frozen, staring at Tyrellus. The woman he had once known, the friend he had trusted more than anyone, was now the cold queen of the Threx dominion. His heart ached as he tried to understand how she had gone from Lena Hartwell to this. Tyrelus's eyes studied him with a mix of curiosity and pity, as if she saw a ghost standing before her, a ghost from a life long forgotten. "You're still here," Marcus whispered, almost to himself. "I thought you were lost. We all thought you were gone." She didn't respond at first. Her gaze softened for just a moment, but then it hardened again, like a shield snapping back into place. "I was lost," Tyrellus finally said, her voice distant, "but I found a new purpose, a new strength." Marcus's mind raced. The years of pain, the years of not knowing, all of it came crashing down on him. "Lena, I don't understand. How did this happen? You were the brightest mind I knew. You wanted to help humanity. You cared about people." She shook her head slowly. "That was before," she said quietly. "Before I learned the truth. Before I became something greater. The Threx gave me power, Marcus. The power to shake the galaxy. To control it. You wouldn't understand. You can't." Marcus clenched his fists, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. He had hoped. No, he had believed that there was still a chance to reach her, to bring her back. But now, as he stood there before her, it was clear that she was lost to him. She wasn't the woman he had known. "I don't want power, Tyrellus," Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with pain. "I just want you back. I don't want to fight you, but I will if I have to." Tyrelus's expression remained unchanged, but her eyes flickered for just a second, as if something deep inside her was wavering. It was barely noticeable, but Marcus saw it. There was still something of Lena in her, buried beneath the layers of the alien queen. "You can't save me," she replied, almost sadly. "You don't understand. I've seen the bigger picture now. The Threx are necessary. Earth is weak, Marcus. Your people are weak. I'm saving you all by making sure you fall in line. I'm making sure you don't destroy yourselves." Marcus took a step forward, his eyes locked on hers. "This isn't the answer, Lena. You don't have to do this. We can fight together again. We can rebuild, make things better. We don't have to be enemies." Her expression softened, just for a moment. The walls she had built around herself cracked. "I wanted to believe that once," she whispered. "But it's too late. I've seen too much. I've done too much. Marcus's heart broke, but he refused to give up. It's never too late. Please, remember who you were. Remember who we were. For a moment, Cyrilus's eyes flickered with something almost human. A flash of recognition. But it was gone too quickly, replaced by the cold, calculating queen who stood before him now. You don't understand, she said again, her voice distant, detached. I'm not Lena anymore. I'm Cyrillus, and the Threx will win. Marcus felt the weight of her words settle over him like a shroud. He knew this battle wasn't just about weapons or strategy anymore. It was about her, about the woman she had been, and the queen she had become. As he stood there, facing the woman he had once loved, Marcus made a silent promise to himself. No matter what it took, he would fight to bring her back. The silence between them stretched, thick with unspoken words and heavy emotions. Marcus stood in the heart of the Threx flagship, facing Cyrillus, the woman he had once known. His heart ached as he looked at her, so familiar, yet so distant. Her transformation into the ruthless queen of the Threx had been swift and complete. But deep down, he knew there was still a part of her that was human. He could see it in her eyes. Please, Cyrillus, Marcus said, his voice quiet but filled with desperation. I don't want to fight you. I don't want to lose you. Cyrilus's cold gaze never wavered. You've never understood, Marcus, she said, her tone sharp. You still don't. I'm not the person you knew anymore. The woman you knew is gone. Marcus's fists clenched at his sides. She didn't see it. She didn't understand that beneath the Threx armor and power, there was still the person he had cared about. Lena was still in there. He had to believe it. That's not true, he exclaimed, stepping closer. You're still in there. I know it. We can fix this. You don't have to be their puppet. You can help us. Help yourself. Her eyes flickered, but only for a second. It was almost like a memory, something from long ago. But then her face hardened, and she stepped back, distancing herself from him. You don't get it, Marcus, Cyrillus said, her voice colder now. The power I have now is far beyond anything I ever dreamed of. The Threx are my family now, my true family. I am in control. This is who I am. This is who I was always meant to be. Marcus felt a wave of frustration crash over him. This isn't you, Lena. The Threx took you, changed you. You're not in control. They control you. You're not yourself anymore. Cyrilus's face twisted slightly, a flicker of something, a memory, crossing her features, but it was gone before Marcus could fully grasp it. She looked away, as if afraid to let him see the vulnerability that still lingered beneath her hard exterior. You don't understand, she said, her voice softer now. I've seen things you can't imagine. The galaxy is a vast, cruel place. Earth. Earth was always doomed. You were always doomed. The Threx are the future. I am the future. Marcus shook his head, refusing to give up. I don't believe that. I won't believe that. There's always a chance to make things right. Please, Lena, come back with me. We can stop all of this together. Cyrilus's eyes finally met his, and for the first time, Marcus saw something that resembled pain flicker in them, a trace of the woman she had been. I can't, she whispered, her voice cracking. It's too late for me. I'm already too far gone. For a long moment, the two of them stood in silence, each struggling with the choices that had brought them here. Marcus felt the weight of the words hanging between them, the realization settling in that this might be the last time he ever spoke to her as the person he had once known. But then something inside Marcus clicked. He couldn't give up. Not yet. Then I'll fight for you. Cyrillus, he said, his voice firm. I'll fight until you remember who you really are. I'll never stop fighting for you. Cyrillus looked at him, her expression unreadable. She said nothing, but there was a slight hesitation in her gaze, a brief crack in the walls she had built around herself. You're a fool, Marcus, she said quietly, but there was no anger in her voice, only resignation. You don't understand what you're asking. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't have to. He was ready to fight, to risk everything for the hope that somewhere inside, Lena was still there. And maybe, just maybe, he could save her. The tension in the room was thick. Marcus stood facing Tyrellus, the woman who had once been his closest friend. The queen of the Threx looked as if she had already made up her mind, but Marcus refused to believe that she was beyond saving. He wouldn't believe that everything they had once shared was lost forever. You say it's too late, Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with a quiet determination. But I won't accept that. Not until I've tried everything to bring you back. Xeralus's eyes narrowed, the coldness returning to her gaze. You don't get it. The Threx have shown me the truth. Power. Control. I can shape the future now. There's nothing left for me in your world. You wouldn't understand. Marcus stepped closer, his heart aching at the words she spoke. He understood. He understood better than anyone. He had seen the way the Threx manipulated people, how they twisted minds to make them believe in their superiority. But he knew that underneath all the power and armor, Lena was still in there. I don't need to understand your power, Marcus replied. What I need to understand is why you're willing to throw everything away. You were never like this. We dreamed together of a better world, where we helped people, where we made a difference. For a moment, Cyrilus's expression faltered. A flicker of something, regret, flashed in her eyes, but it was gone in the next instant. She turned her back to him, staring out at the vast holographic map of the battlefield. It's not the same anymore, she said, her voice soft. The world I knew is gone, and I can't go back. Not after everything I've done. The Threx have given me a new purpose, a new identity. Then that's the lie they've told you, Marcus said, his voice full of conviction. You think this is who you were always meant to be. But it's not. This power, this queen, it's not you, Lena. I know you. You're not a monster. Cyrilus's shoulders tensed, and for the first time, Marcus saw her struggle with something deep inside her. She was fighting herself. Stop, she said quietly, as though trying to silence the conflict inside her. You don't know anything anymore. I'm not the person you knew. I'm Tyrellus. I'm their queen. And that's all I'll ever be now. That's not true, Marcus said softly, his voice breaking slightly. You're still Lena. You still have a choice. For a long moment, there was silence between them. Tyrellus stood with her back to him, her fingers trembling slightly. Marcus could see the fight raging within her. She was caught between the power she had embraced and the memories of the person she once was. Finally, Tyrellus spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't go back, Marcus. I can't undo what I've become. Marcus's heart sank, but he refused to give up. You don't have to undo anything. You just need to remember who you are. And if you'll let me, I'll help you remember. There was no response, no immediate answer, but Marcus could feel the faintest shift in the air, as if something inside her was wavering. Maybe she wasn't as lost as she thought. Maybe there was still a chance for her to come back. Marcus didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if he could pull Lena from the depths of Cyrilus's cold heart. But he knew one thing. He would never stop fighting for her. Please, Lena, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Come back. The room was still, filled only with the hum of alien machinery and the distant sounds of the ongoing battle outside. Marcus stood in front of Cyrillus, his heart pounding. He had poured everything he had into this moment. The words, the hope, the promise of a future together. Now, he waited for her to respond. Cyrillus turned slowly, her eyes meeting his. Her expression was unreadable, cold, but Marcus could see something behind the mask. Something small, fragile, a crack. You think I can just walk away from everything I've built? She asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. After everything I've done, you think I can undo all of it? Marcus took a step forward, not backing down. I'm not asking you to undo anything. I'm asking you to come back to who you were, the woman who cared about humanity, who cared about me. That person is still inside you. I know it. For a long time, there was no answer. Tyrellus didn't move, didn't speak. It felt as though the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Then, slowly, Tyrellus lowered her gaze, her face tightening as if struggling with something deep inside her. Marcus waited, his heart in his throat. He knew that this moment could change everything. Tyrellus began, her voice trembling. She looked up, meeting his gaze with a vulnerability that shocked him. I don't know if I can go back. I don't know if I can stop being what I am. Marcus's heart ached as he reached out, his hand hovering just inches from her arm. You don't have to go back, Lena. You just have to choose yourself. Choose us. Tyrellus looked at his hand, then slowly, almost reluctantly, met his eyes again. The coldness in her gaze had softened, replaced by something more human. I've seen what the Threx are capable of, she said, her voice low. And I've been a part of that. I've watched planets burn, civilizations fall. I've hurt people, Marcus. I don't know if I can be the same person after all of it. You don't have to be the same, Marcus replied softly. But you can still choose to be better. You can still choose to fight for what's right. You've already done so much good in the past. That's who you are, not the queen they want you to be. Tyrellus closed her eyes, her breath shaky. For a brief moment, Marcus saw her, the woman he had once known. The woman who had dreamed of a better future. The one who had shared his hopes, his fears. She was still in there. He could feel it. I don't know if I can. Tyrellus's voice cracked. I don't know if I have the strength to leave all of this behind. Marcus took her hand, gently but firmly. You don't have to do it alone. I'm here. I'll fight with you. We can rebuild everything together, one step at a time. Tyrellus stood frozen, her fingers trembling in his grip. The weight of the decision hung in the air. And for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, Tyrellus nodded. I'll try, she whispered. I'll try to remember who I was. I'll try to make things right. Marcus's heart swelled with relief. That's all I ask. That's all I need. The two of them stood there, hands clasped, surrounded by the hum of the alien machines. The battle outside still raged, but for a moment, it felt as if the world had paused. Tyrellus had made her choice, and though the road ahead would be long, filled with challenges, Marcus knew one thing: they would face it together.